Welcome to the Mike Litton Experience podcast. Mike has over 31 years experience in real estate, finance, and investing. He's passionate about being a father, a teacher, a realtor, an investor, and a leader. Everyone has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. And now, introducing the host of the Mike Litton Experience, Mike Litton.
So what can you expect from the Mike Litton Experience? You can expect stories that will inspire, motivate, advice that will sharpen your focus, and expert information on real estate, finance, and market conditions. Sal Cerda, Mike Litton, thank you so much for being on the Mike Litton Experience. I really appreciate you, bud. Thank you for your time. So as you know, as we talked about, everyone has a story. And our passion is to help them tell it, right? So with your permission, what we're going to do is we're going to start with where you were born, the very beginning of your life, and go all the way through your life story to today. And then we'll talk about anything you'd like to talk about that's happening today or tomorrow. Okay?
Sounds perfect. And thank you for the opportunity, Mike.
Appreciate you, bud. Thanks for being here. So let's start at the very beginning. Where were you born?
I was born in Rancho Bernardo, so by Escondido, in 1986.
You're a San Diego native.
Oh yeah, San Diego native.
Did you grow up in Rancho Bernardo?
I did not. So I was there for like 2 years of my life. So I vaguely remember a few things here and there. And my life, in my eyes, started in TJ, Mexico.
Okay.
Our family moved over there. My grandfather gave a piece of land to my dad.
Okay.
And they built a little 300 square foot home with a travel trailer attached to it. And that is where my life began.
Awesome. So TJ's Tijuana, for people that don't know what TJ means. Okay, so Tijuana, Mexico, which is just south. For those that don't know, it's just south of San Diego on the other side of the U.S.-Mexico border. So,
yes, sir.
So you grew up in Tijuana. How long did you live in Tijuana growing up?
So I lived in Tijuana up until 2001, after September 11, because we used to come to the school over here in the U.S. And the border just became insanely long after 9/11. So I was there up until age 15 or so.
So you're talking about getting across the border was a very long wait.
Yes,
because they were on alert and all that kind of thing after
exactly. We would normally do about maybe 1 hour, right? So we would get to school around 7:30. We would usually wake up around 5:30 a.m., get in the car, and then start our commute to the U.S. so we could go to school.
Where'd you go to school in the U.S.?
I went to Sunny Slope Elementary in Palm Avenue in South Bay, and to Montgomery High School.
There you go. That's cool. So you get up at 5 a.m, you get ready, you wait an hour at the border each day to come across. Obviously you don't wait that much to go back, right? But to get in here, to get to school, that's quite a price to pay to try to get an education, right?
It was. I mean, especially for my mom, she would cross in the morning and in the afternoon to go pick us up.
Right.
For me and my brother, we were just kind of used to waking up super early. Sometimes it was still dark outside, right? At this time of the year, and just hop in the car and sometimes take a nap, catch up on homework, or just kind of enjoy the moment, be present there with her mom and my brother.
There you go. So some quality family time. So you grew up in Tijuana. What was your favorite thing about growing up in Tijuana?
So we grew up very humbly, right? So like I said, it was a small little house attached to a travel trailer. We had an outhouse as a bathroom at the first 3 years, maybe since we moved in there. And my favorite part out of everything is just the freedom that we had. And it wasn't intentional. My dad was working 12, 14-hour shifts.
Wow.
My mom would work too. So it was just kind of my brother, myself for a long period of time. So we had a lot of freedom.
Okay.
right? Like they trusted that we were going to be there when they got home.
Okay.
And in my neighborhood, I had a lot of cousins, right? So even across the street, I had 5 cousins that lived there, and I would just go out, play soccer, hide and seek, get into a little bit of mischief here and there, but always come back.
Yeah.
So it's just
It's just
the
a good
freedom
thing when
that we
you're
had.
growing up, right?
Oh yeah, exactly.
Cool, man. That's awesome. So you have freedom growing up, and then 9/11 hits and you guys end up moving up here?
Yeah, so
Where'd you move to?
we moved to Chula Vista in Palomar Street,
Okay.
and we got a 1-bedroom apartment. At that time, my parents had already gone through a divorce, so it was just my mom, my brother, myself, and we moved into this tiny apartment. My mom was the one basically now holding the house, and it was very different for me.
Yeah.
I didn't have any more freedom, right?
Okay.
So I couldn't really leave the house because everything was far, right? I
Right.
didn't have like a park next to the house. I really didn't know, how to transport myself in the buses or stuff like that. So it was a very different culture change for me and for my brother for the first few years.
Right. So living on Palomar Street and being in that apartment, your parents are divorced. What did your dad do when you were growing up? What did he do for work?
He did a little bit of everything, and that's one thing that I always appreciate about my dad. So first thing I remember, he had a tow truck business in Tijuana, Mexico,
Hmm.
right? And then he started working at a tow company over here in the United States by Sports Arena.
Okay.
And then he became a car sales representative, and then he became a master hypnotist, and then he became a dog breeder.
Wow.
And then he became like he used to have horses and like sell some horses here and there.
Yeah.
So it was always like a lot of little things that he did in order to kind of make ends meet.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to do what you got to do, right?
Yeah.
That's cool, man. So you admire him for that, obviously, right?
Yeah, he always kind of pursued whatever he liked, whatever it was, right? Well, it doesn't mean that it was something or always good or bad or anything, but whatever he liked, he always put his time, he read about it, he studied, and then he went for it.
Yeah. That's awesome, man.
Right.
That's a cool role model.
Yeah.
So you spend the next few years in up here in the US on Palomar Street in that apartment. So where did you go? So you went to high school. Did you so you when did you graduate high school?
He graduated in 2004. I
Okay.
was 17 at the time. I'm
Wow.
from November, so I was inducted into school earlier, like in
Right.
August. So I graduated at 17 from Montgomery High School, and then from there, my grades were all right. They were all right. I never got any extracurricular activities because I was very timid,
Oh,
right?
okay.
So I was pretty much I took the minimum amount of school that I had to in order to graduate.
Okay.
So in my school there was 4 periods,
Hmm.
1, 2, 3 lunch, and then fourth period. And I remember when I sat with my counselor, I didn't want to be in the school in lunchtime, because
Okay.
that meant for me that I had to talk to people.
Okay.
Right? It's like I don't want to just sit there alone and eat my food. I had to talk to somebody. So I asked, like, what do I got to do in order for me not to be here during lunchtime? And she just told me, like, you got to be B or better on all your classes. And I
Really?
did pretty good up until my beginning of senior year, that
Yeah.
I got my first C
Oh,
on chemistry.
yeah.
And because of that, they gave me the option that I had to come to fourth period for the last like 6 months of school, and I had to get an elective. And the one that I chose was
Okay.
theater arts. So I decided, like, you know what, like I'm I'm gonna I didn't really like who I was,
Okay.
right? Like with my parents' divorce and all this turmoil going on in the house, like I started becoming angry. I felt like
Yeah.
I was angry, and because I was angry, I felt like nobody really wanted to talk to me. So then I just became I started just to stay in my little bubble.
Right.
right? So as I was growing and learning new things, I saw that maybe that wasn't the best thing for me.
Okay.
So I decided to join theater, and I fell in love with it. I fell in love with it so much that when I started going to community college, like my major was theater arts. Like I wanted
Awesome.
to become an actor. That
Awesome.
was
Good
that
for
was my
you.
dream at that time.
That's cool, man. So the last 6 months of your senior year, you take an elective and it's theater, right? So what was your favorite thing about it? Sounds like you really took to it. What was your favorite thing about theater?
My favorite part about theater at that time was that I got to be whoever I wanted to be,
Oh,
right?
beautiful.
And it was kind of like a shortcut,
Yeah.
right? To pretending that I was this person. I was pretending to be this other person. And when I got on stage, it's like the stage took a hold of me and I just became anybody that I wanted to be.
That's
Right. So I
cool.
felt that power just kind of come inside and grow. And I fell in love with it. I fell in love with it so much that, like I said, like I wanted it to be my major and I wanted to be an actor. Um, but as I graduated from high school, I got my first job, and then I started to accumulate bills.
Hmm.
And when I was accumulating bills, I got my job was in the evening, and I started getting more roles on plays. I did a few plays. I did a short film, and next thing I know, I couldn't make the practices because I had to work.
Oh.
Right. So it went like that for maybe about a year and a half. That every time you're like, hey, you got to roll. This is the time that we meet to practice and everything. And I'm like, I'm working. I'm
Hmm.
working, I'm working. And after like a year and a half of just saying no and no and no, that's when kind of I decided to make a shift.
Okay.
Uh, that maybe this is not for me right now because I can't stop working
Right.
to just go to school because I need to like, pay for bills and for books and all that stuff.
Right. Got to make ends meet. Got to do what you got to do.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
What were you doing working in the evenings?
It was my first job, actually my second job. My first job, I was a what do you call it? Iron worker.
Okay.
I did that for 2 weeks. I got fired.
Oh, wow.
And then I started working in this market research firm. And
Okay.
all I had to do, they were paying me to talk,
Right.
right? So I'm like, let's get out of the comfort zone. And
Okay.
I was doing either from 5 minutes to an hour and 30 minutes interviews, phone interviews with random people all around the US, interviewing them and asking questions about products.
Wow.
Right. So that was it. And I started falling in love with it. I was the highest, I had the highest completion rate of the interviews when I was in there. And we were talking about 5 minutes, hour, 30-minute interviews, and people just kept, stayed on the phone with me for that amount of time.
What'd you love about
Again, I got to be somebody or anybody that I wanted to be.
it? Okay.
So I in my year that I worked there, I developed uh 3 different little personas that I would use. Like I would change the tone of my voice, I would change my name, I would just kind of, depending on where I was calling, what zone, who I was talking to, my job was to kind of figure out a way to entertain this person in order
Okay.
enough to stay with me on the phone.
Okay.
Right. So I started listening to a lot to like the little details on the voice. Everybody has a few cues here and there,
Yeah.
and I started developing this ear for I'm getting bored, I'm entertained, let's continue, or I want to stop,
Right.
uh, without them actually, saying it.
Right. That's cool, man. What an amazing skill.
Yeah.
So you do that for a year, and then what?
I did that for a year, and that was part time. And then I moved into Avis Rent a Car because at that time I had a girlfriend's mom that worked there, and
Hmm.
she got me an interview for the sales position.
Okay.
I was going to be a sales representative of Avis. I went for the interview, and when I got there, they were like, "We love it, we love you. but we have this position available for you, which is cleaning cars, right? And it was a full-time position though. So I was like, I'll take it.
Right.
Right. So I started cleaning cars. So, you rent a car, you go deliver it, and then they inspect and make sure it's not crashed or anything like that. And then they send it off. I was checking oil, putting gas, cleaning, all kinds of stuff I would find in the cars. And I did that for a good year and a half. And again, I became the top producer of cleaning cars.
That's cool,
I was
man.
just like enjoying making the best out of it. I got the way I see it is, or saw it at the time, was I'm driving brand new vehicles. I've
Hmm.
never been inside, you know, brand new vehicle.
Hmm.
So I would love it when I had to drive the Mustangs out of the lot because we were overflowing, and that was probably the best moment I had working there for that year and a half.
Yeah. So you work at Avis, you give it everything you've got, then
Yep.
what?
Then I reapplied to the sales position, right? Because that by
Okay.
the time the managers already knew me, and they were like, every time they needed help, they knew they can come to me and be like, Sal, we need like more production. And I would be like, yes, let's do it. So I reapplied, and they said no, right? They said no
To Avis
again.
for sales.
Exactly. They said
And they
no
said no
again.
to you?
They said no to me again. And I was like,
Wow.
okay. I'm like, I'll continue. And then uh, I've always thought that there's every adversity brings with it a seed of equal opportunity,
Right.
right?
I
And
agree
when
with
I
that.
was 20, I went to a party in Tijuana, in
Hmm.
TJ, in Mexico, and then I decided to cross the border back to the U.S. instead of staying over there, right? And I had a few drinks. So when I crossed over to the US, I got pulled over by the border patrol,
Hmm.
and I got wet and reckless. They gave me a wet and reckless. I wasn't over the limit, but I had alcohol in my system, and I was 20 years old. So they took my car away. They suspended my license, and without a license, I could not work in Avis.
Right.
So in the next month, while everything was settling in court, I went to Avis to put my 2-week notice.
Hmm.
And I never told him that I got a wet and reckless or a DUI. I just put in there, the reason I'm leaving is because I'm not getting opportunities to move up in the ladder, in the system, right?
Right.
Then they called me the next day and be like, Sal, we got the sales position for you. And I'm like, and I was like, darn it.
All
So
right,
I
Sal.
stuck to it, and I was like, thank you so much. But again, without a license, you cannot work there, right? So I'm
Yeah.
like, thank you so much. I have better opportunities, so I'm just gonna stick with my 2-week notice. And of course, I didn't have anything lined up, but I wasn't gonna tell them
Right.
that I got no more license.
Right.
So I left Davis, and I started working part-time in Target,
Okay.
and part-time at that time. My mom was working at a gift shop
Hmm.
for Hilton, and she got me a position, and I was working now 2 part-times to kind of substitute my full-time job.
Gotcha.
Right. And at this time, and I was still going to college, and I remember that it was just a pain in the ass because I had to commute like 2 hours in the bus, walk, trolley to get to both of my jobs and to school.
Wow.
Right. So I did that for about a few months. And then in the gift shop, I had to wear like slacks and a dress shirt.
Okay.
And I had a really good year one time because I started selling some jewelry that they had,
Hmm.
right? And we would get commission out of jewelry. So I'm like, oh, okay, I could do this. So I was selling some. And then I went to K Jewelers and I bought a watch. And then I was gonna pay for it cash. I didn't have any credit, and they were like, "Well, we can open some credit, and we can kind of help you establish credit if you finance part of the watch." And I
Okay.
was like, "Okay." So I did that, and I started going every month to pay my bill to K Jewelers.
Hmm.
Every time I would go, I would show up in slacks, a nice shirt, and by this time I was already coming out of my shell, right? So I would talk to the ladies there a lot, and then one time they offered me a job,
Wow.
They were like, Sal, we have a position open for sales. Would you like to interview? And I said, yes, let's do it. Right. So I was like maybe almost 21. Yeah, I was about 21 at the time. So I started working. So K Jewelers didn't hire me. Their sister company did, which was Westfield.
We hope you enjoyed another episode of the Mike Litton Experience. If you did, do us a favor, smash that subscribe button, tell your friends, family, and coworkers about our program, and wherever you get your podcasts, please leave us a rating. It helps us to connect with quality people just like you.
And that's a wrap. Another episode of the Mike Litton Experience in the books. Reach out to Mike on Instagram at Litton Realty. Want to meet with Mike? Check out calendly.com/Rio760.